I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Flatlander Kennels Podcast with Chris Jobman. My name is Elliott, and I'm here with none other than Chris Jobman. How are you doing today, Chris?
Hey, buddy. How are you doing? Just loving to do podcasts. I've been working all day. Come in and do this. I can't wait.
That's right. Working hard. Hunting season's in the rear view mirror, and it's full go.
And you dropped the ball, by the way, the other day because we missed a week of podcasting because you didn't text me and tell me we're doing podcasts.
I know I did. If I'm being honest, I was exhausted and I was sitting on the couch. It was the night before. I go to my wife, I was like, "Oh man, I am so tired. I don't feel like podcasting tomorrow." And I made the wrong decision. I let myself be lazy.
I almost texted you and said, "Hey, are we going to do a podcast?" But you know what? I was fine. I was so tired.
I was too, and I just let myself be lazy. I'm pretty good at keeping schedule with things, but I failed on that. So
yeah, that's all right. I'm glad you did.
We missed a week, but we're back now. We're back and rolling, so we're going to do another flowchart episode with a few questions. And remember, go to that Facebook group. There are the questions up there. We love answering them. We will hit as many as we can. So what do we got today?
So now that we did land pattern blinds for the last episode, this episode is going to be on water pattern blinds. And how I do my water pattern blinds, I do it much differently than the land pattern blinds. Land pattern blinds, I put out like 5 blinds or 3 blinds. And my water pattern blinds, I pick a concept. And I work on that concept. And my number one water blind running concept, my number one is a down-the-shore water blind. If you can run a nice down-the-shore water blind, you can run any blind in the world. I mean, that is, they know how to stay off the bank. They know not to get too far out in the water. They know to get in that really weird gray area. So if you could teach one blind, that's the blind to teach. So that's the first one we teach. So I've got 2 or 3 locations on my property that's my go-to down the shore water blinds. So and it's the same thing. Now your dog has been de-cheated, been through swim by. On cheating singles, the dog knows to cast, it knows to kind of stay in the water, all those things. So my first pattern blind I'm going to teach is down the shore. It's the same concept.
Does the depth of the water matter to you? Is it running water or swimming? I
would rather have them swimming.
Okay.
Swimming is harder than the running water usually because when they're running in the water, they kind of think they're on land anyway. I would prefer them to be swimming. That's a good question. And I set up the same way I do land pattern blinds. I put a pile of bumpers out there. I throw a bird into the bumper, or you can throw a bumper into it. Have them go get it. Now, when you're teaching a down the shore water blind, don't go super, super close to the bank where it's extremely difficult. Give them a little bit of leeway. Get them out. You're trying to teach a dog to stay off the bank and stay in the water. So give them more water than more land, if you know what I mean. So give them a little bit more water, and when they throw that bumper into the pile, kick them off. Now when you run a pattern blind, if you let that dog hug that bank and splash down that bank to the pattern blind, you think, "Oh, I did really good. He stayed in the water." No, you didn't, because when you rerun that blind, 99.9% of the time, when that dog reruns a blind, it's going to run the exact same route it came back as it went out. So when you throw that bumper in the pile, keep that dog relatively on line that you want them, because if you let them get too close to the bank, that's what they're going to try to do on the return. So teach them to stay in the water. You've been through de-cheat. You've been through all. They should know a lot of this stuff. So kick them off on their name and handle them on the line that you want them to take. Then on their return, they need to return in the water. They can't be running around the bank, because you're going to go back and you're going to rerun this blind. If you let them run around the bank, they're going to run down that damn bank when you rerun it. So keep them online, in the water, relatively close to on line. If you want them in swimming water, keep them in swimming water. You're better off when you first start these things, more water than less water. You want more water. You're trying to teach them more water. So keep them online, relatively online on the way out. On their return, same thing. The dog should be able to handle what you should have been doing all this stuff in your basics. Handle them online on their return. Now, the exact same concept, dead bird back, kick it, and send them out there. I do one a day, and it's just like the land pattern blinds, but it's not multiple blinds from the same line usually. I do have a spot where I can stand in one spot and run a down the shore water blind at let's just say 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and I can turn to 3 o'clock and run it off the point. I have that luxury to do that. But I usually pick a concept and teach that concept, and that concept is a down the shore water blind is my first one.
Is it a little shorter since it's water? Because we were doing 100, 125 yards with the land.
It depends on what you have. Yeah, usually a little bit shorter is better. 50 to 75 yards, that's usually a little bit better. Just because of it, just water is harder. So if your dog, and I need to say this, if your dog isn't doing land pattern blinds very well, then don't move to water pattern blinds because water is twice as hard as land. So unless your dog is proficient at land pattern blinds and is doing well, don't move to water because now you're just trying to push the issue. And here's the thing too, and this is for Tiffany who trains with me every week. When she started training with me, she's like, let's do water. All these amateurs like, let's do water. That's all they care about at first. And so then I asked her, I said, hey, if your dog is struggling on land, you really think it's ready for the water? Water's twice as hard. So if you can't do it good on land first, don't even try it in the damn water. It's too hard. So once your dog is proficient at land pattern blinds, start teaching these concepts. So here's my concepts in order I teach in water pattern blinds. I teach a down the shore water blind first, and I may do a 2 or 3 of those, different lengths and different ponds. So I have multiple spots. So the first one will be easy, second one will be a little bit harder, third one, harder, fourth one harder, and then I do add holding blinds to the bank. I do throw a mark, pick the mark up on the bank, come back, run the pattern blind. I do all those things, just like the land pattern blinds. Start them out, teach them the destination, and then add concepts, okay? So my first one is a downshore water blind because water is usually if you stay in the water, you're going to do well. My second one is swimming past a point. So again, stay in the water. Okay, stay in the water. My third one is on and off a point. So teach them to get on, teach them to get off. Those 3 pattern blinds are extremely important. And I have 5 down the shore water blinds I teach here. I have 5 swim past the point blinds, and I have 5 on-off points. I have the luxury of doing all these things. I have the property for it. So those are the ones I teach. So it takes me another month to do water pattern blinds. So now we're 2 months now with pattern blind lining and casting, land pattern blinds, water pattern. Now we're 2.5 months into pattern blinds?
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. But I promise you, after 2.5 months of this stuff, your dog will be able to run any blind known to man. I mean, so down the shore, swim past the point, on and off a point, and then you can start doing like cutting corners, maybe crawling over. We have a pond with a bunch of logs in it. I also teach that. I also teach them to crawl over logs in a pattern blind. I do all those things and just let it build. And when I do my water pattern blinds, like I said, I got one spot, and if I got a dog that's really doing well, I could mentally take it, I'll run a down the shore water blind at 12 o'clock, and I'll turn from the exact same spot I am, I'll turn to 9 o'clock, or 3 o'clock, and I'll swim past the point blind. So I'm working on 2 concepts at the same time. Now, a lot of people don't have that property to do that, so you're going to have to build your pattern blinds. Like your first one's going to be down the shore, swim past the point, on and off a point. If you don't have the points and all the technical stuff to do that, teach a really nice down the shore water blind. And maybe your first water blind, down the shore water blind, the dog is 10 yards out in the water, swimming down the shore. Now go to a different pond and make that line to that blind 5 yards out in the water. Teach that blind. Then maybe make it 3 yards out in the water. Get it closer to the bank as you go. Okay? Making them harder. Now, with all this being said, I know a lot of trainers and people out there that, you know what, and let's just say the dog is sucking into the bank real bad. And they're always like, you know what, I'm going to let that dog get on that bank and I'm going to burn off that land. That is the worst possible thing you could possibly do. You're not teaching a dog anything when you do that. All you're teaching a dog is the land is hot. Don't get on land. That's not teaching a thinking dog. That's not teaching a dog that's going to be a team player. That's just teaching a dog to be fearful of land, which is not what you want. So when you're running your pattern blinds, it doesn't matter if it's a land pattern blind or if it's a water pattern blind. The second you see that dog make the decision to go to the bank, the second you see it turn its head, you stop, you intervene, and you get it back online, or maybe you put it more into the water to teach them, hey, we want you more water. Don't let that dog get on the bank and burn it off the bank. Because now all you're going to have a dog is just going to jump in the water and stay way out in the water where it thinks it's safe, and you can never run it down the short water blind in that really weird gray area, splash water, it's right next to the bank. That it's hard to teach that. So as soon as the dog makes the decision to either get on land or give in to the factor, whatever factor it is, when you're running your pattern blinds and cold blinds, the second you see your dog give in to the factor, that's when you intervene. That's when you change the dog's mind, you put it back online. Then you start teaching a thinking dog and a dog that's not scared to run a good blind. They look out, a lot of our dogs here, I run so many water blinds up, they'll look out and see it down, they're like, got it. And that's where they're going. They don't look out, they're not scared. Because a lot of our corrections, as soon as they change their mind, I change their mind. They're not fearful of land. They're not fearful to get out. They're not scared of the point. If I want on the point, okay, I'll get up on the point. I want off, get off the point. Because I teach them when as soon as they change their mind, they give into the factor, and I intervene. I don't let them get up on the factor of land or whatever, then burn them off there. That's not what you want to do at all.
Can you talk a little bit about the role of the e-collar and when to and when not to use it during the water pattern blind?
Well, I know some people are like, you never, give your dog a correction with an e-collar in the water. That's BS. That's BS. If you've done your collar conditioning correctly and you've built your dog correctly, you can give them a correction anywhere and they'll accept it. The old don't give them a correction in the water. That's wrong. I try to use when I'm doing my corrections. Like say the dog is sucking in to the bank. I try to give us a light of correction I possibly can to change their mind. And the reason for that is I don't want to overcorrect and all of a sudden that dog takes way too much water and I can never get that damn dog close enough to the bank again. It's just so hard to do. So when you give a correction, you always give the smallest correction you can to change the dog's mind. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and I'm asking, it doesn't sound like, so if you're going down the shore blind, the dog is sucking to land, you stop it, cast it back out, you're probably not going to use a correction there, but if immediately it takes another cast and sucks in, then maybe that's when you're going to use all the.
Yeah, maybe your correction is,
but maybe the second one.
Yeah, maybe you have a dog that's a little bit more sensitive, and when they suck into the bank, you stop them and you just cast them away without a correction. It's all dog dependent. All this training stuff is dog dependent. If you've got a dog that's a little bit more hard headed, a little bit more stubborn, maybe the second they give and you have a problem with this dog sucking into the bank and giving into factors, whether it be wind, terrain, bank, whatever, maybe that correction for that dog is stiffer than the dog before that, because that's the dog's problem, and that's how that dog maybe learns is through a little bit harsher correction to get it through their head. Some dogs, you do that to Shaker. If Shaker gives into to the bank, and you correct him too hard, you could throw a flyer on that bank and say dead bird back. He won't even look at the damn thing. I mean, or Mark, he won't get out because he knows, hey, I'm supposed to be in the water. A good dog stays wet. Here I go. So you have to know your dog because some of these dogs take those corrections to heart, and you can't get the damn things out of the water. Right. I mean, so I'm training Dave Marsteller's dog Maddie right now, who's super, super nice. And Dave did all the training on it. I'm just brushing it. I'm getting ready to run in the Grand. And I remember when we started training with Dave and Maddie, and Dave did a really good job of teaching Maddie water's good, land's bad. But he did a good job of it. But Maddie's one of those dogs that you nick her on the damn bank, she's not getting out. She is not getting out. So we've had to kind of slow some of those corrections down, and now she gets in and out beautifully. But he was always, as an amateur, he was always under the assumption, hey, gets out, that's when she gets in trouble. I've changed that mindset with him now, and his dogs look so good in the water. They know when to get out. They know when not to get out. Because at first, and I'm not trying to pick on Dave. Dave was here yesterday training, but they wouldn't get out of the water when we started training with him because he was under the impression that when they got out, that's when you give them a correction, not when they gave him the factor. Yeah. So, and you have to have a balance.
Every dog is different, and learning your dog is really the key. Like with Georgie, I've never had an example of being too harsh with the collar with her. She just bounced back, so it doesn't matter. So what I look for, though, is over time I know what her mistakes are. So sometimes I'll give her a preemptive little nick on something that I know she's has problems with. But other times I'll tell you once, if you give me a refusal on the next one, she's just being a little bitch.
Yeah, you know. And there's some dogs that you give them the benefit of the doubt, and there's other dogs you get zero benefit of the doubt. You know better. Right. You know better, and when you give into the factor. So if I have a dog that is constantly giving into the wind as a factor, like constantly fading with the wind, I don't give them a chance. I stop them. I'll give them a correction, and as soon as they give into the factor, I stop and give them a correction and a cast. I don't give them an opportunity to give me a cast refusal because I know it's coming. I know it's coming because they're like, I call them Groundhog Day dogs. They do the same shit every single day. It doesn't matter what you do. You come out and you work on corner cutters, and the first one they run, they try to cheat. They're Groundhog Day dogs. You know, they do the same thing every single day. And with those dogs, they get, like you said, a preemptive strike. The second you try it, and you're going to get it because we worked on this, and this is your problem, and this is how you learn. Other dogs, like I said, like Shaker, you don't do that with. He's like, no, come here. And he tries to, let's just say he tries to cheat the bank. No, come here, rethrow it. And he'll be like, I got it, I'm good. If I were to give him a correction, he'd have just jumped right in the water, and we wouldn't have got anything out of it. So you have to train the dog, and you have to know the dog's tendencies. Train the dog in front of you, not the dog in your past, and not the dog in your future, and not your buddy's dog, and not your friend. Train the dog in front of you, and train that dog.
And pay attention. Be when I first started this intensive training, that's one thing I didn't realize. I thought, well, here's the program. You followed A through Z. So much of it is learning and reading your dog and being thoughtful about the reactions you're getting from that dog. Correct. And adjusting to it. That a program can't tell you that because the program doesn't know your dog and how your dog's personality.
They don't at all. And another thing too is and I see this a lot when we train in our training groups, is if you've got a good pro that you're training with and you're in a training group, a really good amateur group, get off damn Facebook and watch those dogs train. That's one thing Marsteller Dave is so good at, and his head's going to explode after I say this. But when he is there training, he is 100% involved. He watches every single dog. He asks me questions almost on every dog. He's like, okay, on that third cast, did you give that dog a correction? What did you do with this? He literally watches every single dog run, every one of them, and he is involved. He is in the moment. He is there to learn. He's not sitting back there on damn Facebook in a chair. Oh, what are we doing now after 30 dogs have ran? He is learning, because every dog is different. So he is learning how I correct the dog and how I handle certain situations because he's watching every dog. And if you're in a group, watch the dogs and ask about it. Ask questions. It's not a stupid. There's no stupid questions. Well, there actually is, but there's no really stupid questions because that's how you learn. And put your ego away. Put Facebook down unless you're on our podcast Facebook page. of course. But put Facebook down and pay attention, because especially these pattern blind stuff with these young dogs, there is so much learning going on that it's hard to even comprehend what you're watching as an amateur or young pro, because you haven't seen that many dogs run. So this is your perfect time, if you've got a pro that's running pattern blinds, is to go watch them and see every single dog and then talk through the corrections. And, hey, I did Blue like this, and I did Granger like this, because this is Blue's tendency, this is Granger's tendency, this is George's tendency, and learn from that. And Tiffany's really good at it too. She writes notes. She takes notes all day. So that's when you really learn. In this, watching guys run big dogs, grand dogs, FCs and shit all day long, you're not really learning anything, because their dogs are so good. They're usually doing a good job. It's when you have these transition dogs that are in pattern blinds and stuff, that's, as a trainer and an observer, that's when you learn a ton, because those dogs are not robots. Those dogs make mistakes. They got to get corrections, and you have to be involved. You cannot be a spectator. So if you're watching these dogs run, or your pro run, whatever you got going on, that's a great time to ask questions and learn a ton, because that's when those dogs are being built, is during those stages.
All right. We got any more on water pattern blinds, or is that do it?
I'm good. Just take your time, and this is our final episode on pattern blinds. Take your time, build your dog correctly. It's not a race. Our next installment on the flow chart will be simple cold blinds, and then that's pretty much the flow chart on how to build a handling dog. It's been fun to talk about, and I'm going to try to do this summer. Maybe add some videos to some of these steps, to all these, so everybody can see what it looks like.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's my plan. Let's answer.
Ready to go to the questions?
Yeah, let's do some questions.
Right. Looks like we've got 4 here we're going to do today. Is that right? 4, 1, 2, 3, yeah. This is from Kevin Lumen. For the amateurs trying to run AKC senior to master tests, what is the best way to work on flyers without having to buy and shoot a ton of birds? I've heard about simulated flyers, but haven't heard a good explanation of what they are and how to use them to replicate a live flyer.
So, Kevin, you have to shoot live flyers to teach your dog to deal with live flyers. Now, I'm not saying you have to shoot a lot of them, but a simulated flyer would be like me and Elliott out in the field. We have our duck call, we have our shotguns, and we throw a dead bird, and we shoot real guns like boom, 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 boom to simulate a flyer, but without shooting the bird. The thing about flyers that's so important that people don't understand is dogs, when you shoot a flyer, the feathers are everywhere, the blood's everywhere, got some blood and feathers. That's it, and the wind blows, those feathers all over. So now you have a monster area of the fall, because those flyers don't land in the same position. You've got carnage basically out in the field, and for a dog to learn how to differentiate body scent to loose feathers to blood to bone is very difficult for some dogs, because they'll get out in that flyer area and lose their damn mind and hunt like a maniac and run right over the top of the bird, because everything smells like the bird. It's a humongous area. It's chaos out there. So in order to teach a dog to get out in that area of a flyer area and dig a dead bird out of cover when there is, feathers and blood and stuff everywhere, they have to learn that's a skill that they have to learn. And the only way to teach that skill is to shoot live flyers. And also, that not only that, it adds a whole level of excitement to your training setup that you cannot simulate. I have seen a pile of dogs go run their first 2 or 3 master tests that weren't trained on live flyers. As soon as that flyer comes out, they lose their damn mind. They forget where the go bird's at. They don't care where. That flyer, especially if you have a dog that hunts a lot, like Georgie, that flyer can really bother them a lot, because it's so exciting. It's the real thing. Now, with that being said, I don't think a dog needs to see a live flyer all the time. A few a month, maybe one a week. I love a flyer when it comes to training attitude. A flyer also is great at keeping a dog in the area to dig it out because there's so much scent in there. They dig it out. But you have to train with flyers. You've got to train with flyers at least a little bit, or you're going to struggle. One thing I'm going to do this year that I told my guys is we're going to do something a little bit different this year. Now, we typically buy anywhere from, 700-800 ducks to 1,000 ducks a year for our tests and for our training. I just bought 100 pigeons, and I'm going to use flyer pigeons in training because I guarantee, and I'm going to throw ducks and stuff too, but I guarantee you a flyer pigeon is going to be really hard to find. And if they can dig out a flyer pigeon, they can dig out a duck flyer or a pheasant flyer. So I'm going to make my flyers a little bit harder when it comes to finding them. So I'm going to use some pigeons, and I'm going to try. And what I think that's going to do is hone in their nose instead of smelling, being way offline 40 yards and winning the duck and running way over there. If you're offline 40 yards, you're not going to smell that damn pigeon. So I'm going to add pigeons to my flyers stuff. Maybe not all the time, but I'm going to shoot enough pigeons where a dog has to get in that area and dig that bird out because it doesn't smell very much. So,
all right, next question. Stormy Crook. He says, Hatchie is a 22-month-old season-level dog preparing for finish-level testing. I'm interested in learning a drill to get her following the gun on the triple. In training, she'll get distracted and miss the bird coming out. My pro recommended the bucket drill. This brings me to the two-part question. Do you use this drill? If yes, would you walk me through it? If no, what drill do you use and how is it accomplished?
I don't do the bucket drill. Now I have done it in the wintertime where you just sit on a bucket and you say heel. You turn to the left and you say heel, and the dog's supposed to spin behind you. And you say turn to the right. You say here for a left heeling dog. And the dog's supposed to turn with you. What I do is, especially if you train by yourself, which I think Stormy does. I don't know who his pro is, but what I do is I don't shoot. When I'm first teaching the dog to turn with the gun, I don't shoot a gun. I sit on a chair and I use a wooden gun, like a fake wooden gun. I use an AKC test, and I let's just say you're using wingers and or a bird thrower. It doesn't really matter. Point the gun. Let's just say the mark's coming out at 12 o'clock. Sit your dog down, and let's just say you're using wingers. Point the gun, and how I like to do it is if it's a left-handed heeling dog, I shoot with my left hand. I just hold it with my left hand so it's going. So if this dog's head's right here, that gun is going right here. If you shoot it in the right hand, that gun's way over here. So if you put it in the left hand, they can look right down the gun barrel. You see what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. Your left hand, and you're a right-handed heeling person, so you would be on the right side with your right. But you put the gun on your left side, and the dog's sitting there, and you're pointing it out there, whether it has a winger or a hand-thrown bird by somebody. So when I point it out there, I'll wave at them. I point the gun first, and then I wave at them, and then they make noise. They hey, or you quack, or you hit your sound button on your winger, so they're looking out there. Then you say mark. So then they look down the gun barrel, they hear the sound in the field, the gun barrel is pointing at the sound, and the bird comes out. Okay? That's how I teach them to look down the barrel. So then if I want them to turn, let's just say there's one at 12 o'clock and there's one at 3 o'clock. The 12 o'clock one comes out first. You point the gun barrel down there like that. Quack, quack, quack. They look down the gun barrel, the bird comes out. Mark. Then you'll turn to the right, which is 3 o'clock, you'll say here. And you might have to pull the dog just a little bit, but once you turn the dog, you're turning to 3 o'clock, then you quack, 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 or whatever you got to do on that 3 o'clock bird to make noise. Oh, then the dog hears that, so that dog turns, and you turn with that dog, and now they're looking down the gun barrel at 3 o'clock, and you say, here, mark, quack, quack, mark, and the bird comes out. So now you're going from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and then you can go from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock, but I use a fake gun that's really light, and I make sound in the field, so that way when I turn, they expect to hear a sound or see a bird in the air. So they learn to look down that gun barrel. Mm-hmm. So if you have a left-handed heeling dog, you turn to the right, it's here. You have and turn to the left, it's heel. So and you can sit in your living room or your garage. It doesn't matter. You can sit there, or you can have like an ATB in your hand, on your right hand, and you say you got that dog sitting on your left side. You can take this ATB, point the gun, throw the ATB out, mark, send the dog. Now, then point that dog back at 12 o'clock here, turn to 3 o'clock. When that dog's turned, have your gun pointed, toss the ATB or bumper out, mark, send the dog. Then that dog learns to turn with you and look down the barrel that something's coming out. So I hope that helps, Stormy. I don't know if it does or not, but
that sounds good.
I don't worry about when I'm teaching a dog to follow a gun barrel. I don't worry about shooting at all. That's my least of my worries. And I'm going to tell you, if you're ever going to run the Grand someday, anybody listening, you better teach your dog to look down a gun barrel and look down the gun barrel and not look around, because there's going to be marks at the Grand that you cannot see. No, if they're not looking perfectly down that gun barrel, you are shit out of luck. You are not going to see that bird. So take your time and teach this skill for sure.
Yeah, at the HRC finish test, normally the winger makes enough noise.
Yeah, normally, but it does. But boy, you run the Grand, you can't hear them things going off. That's a skill that really needs to be taught. Mm-hmm. Without a real gun, if you don't have a fake wooden gun, use a broomstick. Who cares? It doesn't really matter. Just something pointing out there.
All right, question 3, Grant Wolf. Question for the podcast. This weekend we ran a master test and saw our first interrupted delayed triple at a test. I've trained this some, but this is the first time I saw it at a test. While we did get through it, it wasn't as clean as I would have liked it to be. How often do you train these, and how do you train for them? Map and mark with description included.
There were some good answers to this. I do this all the time. So I did it yesterday. I did it today. And it helps with a number of different things. And I don't really care about, I know Jason said something in the comments about he doesn't like to, know off of a go bird to get the dog looking away. That doesn't bother me as much, which is a good point that he had, but it doesn't really bother me as much. Like I did it today. And I did it yesterday. It works on memory. It works on suction. It can work on a lot of different things. But I do delayed stuff all the time. And all the time. Like I'll run delayed triples. I'll run interrupted stuff. Like today, we worked on, we had some singles and a blind. And then the first mark came out. And we were working an indented triple. Where it's like a V. Mm-hmm. And the indent is the short bird. And so what we did there is I threw the left mark, went left to right like this, and I picked it up as a single, and I went to the far right mark, and that went right to left. So it's like a V, right? So this mark came like this mark came like this, and I had one here in short. So I picked up this as a single, did a bird in the mouth on this one, and this super short bird right here. So the first mark came out like this. The last mark came out like this and landed almost in line with the left mark. I knowed off of that short indent mark, and I ran a behind the gun blind. Then I came back, I used my easy command, and I picked up the short indented bird. So I do interrupt this stuff all the time, but I do it to work on things. Like today I won, and I did it yesterday. We work on check down birds. So we knowed off of the short mark, ran the big blinds, came back and worked on that short check down bird. So that's pretty much like an interrupted deal. Now, with that being said, be careful doing a lot of this knowing off of a mark, running a blind, coming back, if you have wingers. The problem, because here's what you run into, especially with the young dogs. And we had to do this, so I'm training all the young dogs. So yesterday we had some young dogs that struggled with, we had a longer mark come out yesterday. We know a long, like 125-yard mark came out right to left. We knowed off of that, and we ran a behind the gun blind. So some of my young dogs, when we knowed off of this mark, we ran a behind the gun blind. They came back and they were confused because it was in 4 marks. They were confused on where they were going to go back to the memory bird that we knowed off of. If you have a winger, it's very, very difficult to get that dog's attention out there and looking at where they need to go. I had my gunner, if they struggled at all, I had my gunner step out I go, hey. I go, where's that mark at? And the dog goes, oh, it's right there. After we ran the blind, they were like, they were looking around, had them step out, hey. And they're like, oh, it's right there. Oh, yeah, that's right. I kick her off. So that's working on the memory and going back to pick up that poison bird. If you have a winger, it's really hard to get that attention, because now you're handling on a blind, now you're handling on a memory bird, a poison bird. Now it's a handle fest. So be careful doing the poison bird stuff. If you can, try to have a gunner or a helper with you to do that. But I train for interrupted stuff all the time, because you see more and more of it in Master all the time. And if you in Master National, you're for sure going to see it. And we do it a lot, actually. We do it quite a bit.
All right, let's move on to the last one.
Be careful. If you overdo that stuff, I'm sorry, Elliot, but if you overdo that stuff, your marking is going to go down, because you have to have a good balance of go get the marks, come back. And there was a no see 'em mark quote on that one of those comments. I don't know what that is. I think Mr. Potter put that on there, but I don't know what a no see 'em mark is. But you have to have a really good balance. If you start overdoing your knowing off of marks and running blinds, then a lot of times what ends up happening, like Jason says in his comments, some of these dogs will start not watching that mark come all the way to the ground, because they know they're not going to get it. So and you're going to run a blind. You have to have a really good balance so the dog watches the bird come all the way to the ground. So don't overdo your poison bird stuff. You got to have a really good balance, of all that stuff. Okay, I'm done.
All right, good. Well, it's good to be thorough. Walter says, I have a dog that will turn 2 years old in May. He has never ran a test in his life. I will campaign him this summer and fall. I'm expecting to get his HRCH title first and then his MH title. I have run finish tests before with a prior dog. I personally have never run an AKC test, never even been to one. I feel like I am pretty familiar with what I should expect in a weekend finish test. I understand that both finish and master would require a dog to do clean, triples, blinds, diversion, honor, be steady, etc. I also understand that you can talk to the dog in master and you will have a flyer. What I want to know is, what concepts should my dog be comfortable with prior to running a master test? I have a list compiled from listening to podcast conversations with other handlers, watching YouTube videos, etc. Can you tell me if this list is complete, i.e., am I missing anything? And if it is complete, can you estimate on a percentage basis how likely or how often you would see these concepts on a weekend tests? And here's the list. Marks, hip pocket marks, flower pot, mom and pop, pinch converging marks, 2 down the shore, inline triples, out of order triples, bridge marks, out of order flyer, interrupted triples, walk up marks, cheating singles, poison birds, punch birds, and check down birds. Blinds, going under the arc, close to the gun, behind the gun, down the shore, channel blinds, on and off island points. I am primarily self-training my dog and want to make sure that I am not missing some major concept. Thanks for advance. That's a lot. That's a big one there.
Well, Walter, you need to work on all that. Yes, that's a lot. So the biggest difference is in master compared to finished is there's a lot of them. I really like both games. There's a lot of it. Typically, now not always. Everybody, all the finished judges out there, relax, get your panties out of your butt. Is typically a master test is more technical. You got tech water, tighter marks, a little bit more technical. And the biggest difference is in master, when you come to the line, I'm not going to really talk about concepts, because you hit on all those. You need to work on all those concepts, whether you run finished or whether you run master. You need to work on all those concepts. But I'm going to just talk about the mechanics. When you come to a master test, you're going to come to the line. You're going to make your dog sit. You cannot point out guns.
Can you kick your dog? Are you allowed to kick your dog?
If you're Elliott Schneider, you can kick your dog and get a warning. If you're Chris Jobman, no, I don't get that warning. I get kicked out, which is not a bad idea. Maybe I should kick him more. But anyway, you're going to come to the line. You're going to sit the dog, sit him down, get the dog under control, grab your fake gun, and then when you call, you can talk to your dog when you come to the line. You can say here, sit, heel. But when you call for the bird, when you're ready and you call for the bird to the judges, you're going to wave your hand. You cannot talk to your dog again until that judge releases your dog with either the dog's name or the number. You cannot talk to that dog again. As soon as they call your number, you can kick the dog off. Now, that's at the line. And correct me if I missed something here, Elliott. In HRC, you can have a handle in the area. So if your dog is in the area of the fall of a mark and it's having struggles picking it up, and you handle your dog to the bird, as long as you're in the area of the fall of that bird, that is not considered a handle because your dog made the area, knows the bird's there. You just have to help it. So that is considered a handle in the area. That is not a handle. In master, there is no such thing as handle in the area. So you go to handle, you're handling. Unless the judge says, hey, put your dog on the bird, we have you. Maybe your bird's sinking. Maybe your flyer crawled off. Hey, if the judge says, hey, go ahead and put your dog on the bird, it's a free handle, then they go ahead and do it. But in master, 99.9% of the time, if you blow your whistle and you handle your dog, it's a handle whether it's in the area or not. Okay? You're going to see flyers. That's a big – and then some of them can be walk-ups. Some series, you're going to have a walk-up. You have to have a walk-up. So you're going to have a walk. So the first bird out, it's got to be like at 35 yards or something like that. That's the first bird out. You have to have a walk-up series. So typically, it's usually a land walk-up. I have seen flyer walk. Please don't do this, judges. But I have seen flyer walk-ups at 35 yards. The first bird out, and that is, terrible. And you're going to have one series that has double blinds. Typically, it's a double land blind. So you're going to have a land triple with a double land blind. You've got to have a double blind. You got to have a walk-up. You have to have an honor, and you can speak to your dog on the honor at AKC softly. You cannot sit. You cannot bother the working dog. You can speak to the dog softly. You're going to have a water blind. You're going to have a land blind. You're typically going to have three triples. Typically, not always, but typically you'll have three triples. Prepare your dog for interrupted triples, where the triple comes out. You might pick up the go bird. You might know off the other two marks. You may run a blind or two blinds, then come back and get the other two marks. You're going to see that quite a bit. You see a lot of interrupted stuff. What am I missing, Elliott?
I don't think you're missing anything.
So, but typically you're going to see a little bit more technical work in a master test, and a lot of HRC tests, they have you really close to the water. A lot of master judges, especially if they have any field trial flair to them at all, you're going to be away from the water. You're going to be 5 yards, 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards back from the water, and they're going to expect your dog and master to do a lot of more technical work. What I mean by that is cutting corners. You're going to have to slice a corner of water on a land blind. Or a water blind, or not a land blind, but a water blind, maybe a water mark. You're going to have to slice through a corner of water, and judges do not like it, especially in AKC, if that dog runs around that water to get to that bird. A lot of times those birds that you got to cut the corner of water are memory birds, which makes it even harder. So you have to work on, down the shore watermarks, cutting corners, on-off points, all that technical type stuff that you listed. You need to work on all of that. The flyer is a big deal. It's really exciting. Sometimes it's hard to find. To work on some flyers. Am I missing anything, Elliott?
No, I don't think so. I would just say that one bad mistake that I made that really came back to haunt me is that I was way too vocal during the HRC with the sit.
Yeah.
And that was taken away. Georgie didn't hear it, and that's when she started creeping. So I would,
Yeah.
if you're just starting HRC first, I would definitely try to minimize the amount of talking that you're doing to your dog at the line.
Yeah. So, and a lot of HRC people make the mistake. I've seen it 100 times. Their first 1 or 2 master tests in HRC, as soon as that bird hits the ground or the water, you can release your dog. You send your dog in HRC. Don't get in that to make the mistake when you run your first master test. As soon as that dog, because everybody's a little bit nervous. As soon as that dog hits that bird hits the land, they send their dog, and they're not waiting for the judge to call your number. So, and be very mindful of that, because I've seen as soon as that bird hit, they send their dog and they're out. They just get excited and they get nervous and they forget that rule. That's a humongous rule. Some AKC tests will have a bucket to put your birds into when you're done. But if there is not a bucket there, the judges will take that bird out of your hand. Whatever you do, don't take that bird, just fling it back there. If there's a bucket there for the birds, put the bird in the bucket. If there's a judge that's taking that bird from you, politely hand that bird when your dog to the judge. Don't just throw it back there. And that's impolite. They don't like that at all. So, be very mindful of your birds and respect your birds. Put them in a bucket or hand them to the judge.
As an amateur, I like the AKC tests better. I think they're more fun. The more technical stuff is more fun to me. But I think for an amateur, the atmosphere of the HRC is a little more fun because it's a lot more amateurs, it feels like.
I prefer, this is just me, I prefer the AKC master test over weekend finish tests. And my main reason for that is I like a little bit more of the technical work, like you said, and I don't like to be in head-to-toe camo slopping around in the mud and crap. I am such a weirdo about that. Because you've trained at my place, it's all mowed. You're not walking through weeds. You're not standing in mud. I can't. You run the amount of dogs as I run, you get really, really tired of slopping through the mud. You really do. And one thing you see a lot of in AKC is, and which is a really good thing, I wish more HRC judges would do this, is HRC for some reason has this phobia about throwing birds on land. It's getting better because there's a lot of people that are doing both, judging both. But typically, you're going to see a lot of HRC finish tests, maybe with birds splashing in the water, even memory birds in the water. A lot of AKC tests, they'll throw their birds up on land, so the dog has to get in and get out of the water to get the bird, so the bird's not sinking in the water, which I really enjoy. So, much better.
Yeah, and I've got videos of both HRC and AKC tests. I've got at least 1 or 2 from out with you, a Flatlander Kennel, one the AKC Flint Oak, and I've got 2 or 3 HRC. So I've got both of those on video.
Yeah. And you better be able to run. So as far as flyers go, you better be able to run, and they'll do poison birds sometimes too. So that flyer comes out at noon, at 12 o'clock from right to left. And you better be able to run a blind behind the flyer station, like hug the flyer station and not have that dog go back over into that flyer area. You better be able to run a really nice behind the gun blind, behind the flyer or something like that. Or if the wind is blowing across the flyer station, and run downwind of the flyer station where all that scent is too. So you need to be able to run on both sides of the gun on a flyer station for sure.
Well, that's it. They've cleaned out all the questions. We need more questions, guys. So go to the Facebook group and fill them back up.
Yep, that's all I got. Thank you, Elliott. Hope everybody's enjoying the podcast. So we'll see everybody at the line. Take dead aim.
Take that fire, take it to the grave.